Can you see that?
Very well.
What is a Dresden plate?
Excellent. So what I would like you guys to do is, I'm going to put this in presentation mode. No, not a slideshow.
But we have just a few minutes before we get started.
Okay. But what I'd like you to do is make it so that you only see that. You know, you don't have to look at me, because there's some detail that would be good if...
I can only see you, Mitch.
Yep.
Got a black area on the rest. I don't know whether, that's better. Thank you.
Yep, so your presentation should be pinned to the screen while someone's presenting. It kind of takes over everybody's accounts,
Mitch,
essentially, and that's what they say.
Right, Mitch, that one.
Which?
The one on the right, you had it. Presentation mode, the one on the right.
This?
That's one, yep. Yes.
Huh. Oh, I don't want the movie. Okay.
There you go.
That entirely, right? And I should be able to page up and page down. Excellent. Now, one of the things I noticed, Nick, are you still online?
I am.
When I have a few little videos, and just like last time when I tried to play the videos through PowerPoint, I couldn't hear the sound. And so I may just, narrate through them. I'll try to hear the sound, but if it doesn't work, then I'll just narrate through them. They're very short anyway.
Okay.
And so, if it were, unless you've got some suggestion about how I can hear the sound, I'm not sure how to make it work.
We'll potentially stick with that. If you can still see on your Google Meet where it says you're presenting underneath it, you'll see a little tab that says audio presentation or presentation audio.
It says, let me see, you're presenting to everyone. The stop is a little arrow.
And right below that, does it say presentation audio?
It does not, ma'am.
Okay, so then we'll just have you go ahead and voice over. We'll just make it easier.
We're talking about 30-second videos, and so it shouldn't be so hard.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll be able to get through it.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, so with that, it looks like we're at the time. Welcome everyone to this session. It looks like a lot of familiar faces, so you guys have already heard this, but I have to say it, is if we're getting a lot of audio feedback, we'll probably mute your mic. So if you start talking and no one's responding, you may have to check and see if your mic is muted. I can't unmute you, I can only mute you as moderator. We do have the chat function on the side. It's super helpful for if you have a question or you have a comment or just kind of want to chat on the side. That's a good place to have it. There is also a raise hand function. You'll see it at the bottom of the screen. It's actually like a little hand. It's just like in class. That helps you kind of get seen by the teacher. And if Mitch doesn't see it, one of the moderators, myself or Spence, will bring it up and let Mitch know. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and hand it over to him and the Dresden Plate.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming. So I've decided, I stumbled across the Dresden Plate because my wife's a quilter. And classically, the Dresden Plate is a design element used in traditional American quilts. And so the question was in my mind, how can I use this for kiting? So in the traditional sense, this is what a Dresden plate is. It's round, it often has floral arched boundaries and a button in the middle. And this was a typical Dresden plate. And it didn't seem very interesting to me for kiting. But then I discovered that this is also a Dresden plate. It's got sharper angled boundaries, and it's got internal decoration and different and far more vivid colors. Moreover, this has got 12 leaves or sections to it the typical Dresden plate in a quilt has got 20, and at 100 or 200 feet in the sky, you just couldn't see it. But this seemed like it would be a little more visible. And it turns out that all of these are Dresden plates. Some of them got buttons in the middle, some of them don't. They're different sizes and different peripheries. And the sections don't all have to be the same size. And so it started to get interesting to me because it seemed like it was a little more flexible. The fact is that all of these are Dresden plates. This is a Dresden plate outside of another Dresden plate. Even these little things are parts of Dresden plates. If you look at the border, these are all triangular sections cut in the same way. And I think that I'll actually show an example of how this compass, this mariner's compass, is actually a kind of Dresden plate. So it struck me that it would be more useful. In fact, they can be tessellated. You know, tessellating means fitting things together so there's no spaces. Or they can be spaced so that the background fabric can shine through. Or they can be color matched. So in this case, you can tessellate them with the colors matched to one another. Or you can decorate them. In this case, I've decorated the outside with contrasting threads or with a contrasting color in the button. They can be exploded into fans or triangles or halves. It struck me, therefore, that the Dresden plate is not so much an element, a decorative element, but it's a device, it's a process that constructs things out of wedges. They can be different colors, they can have different colored sections. Each section can be different colors. It can have all kinds of borders, and you can arrange them as discs and rings and stars and squares and flowers. It's actually a technique and not a shape. And so with that basic approach, I made this kite. Now, this is a pipa, as you could easily see. It's a 12-section Dresden plate, split in half so that the background color can intrude into the center, with an 8-section Dresden plate in the middle. So at its simplest, let's see how to construct this. Any questions so far? Okay, so let's see how to put this together. What do you need to do this? Well, it's important that you use some kind of template because precision is quite essential to get a flat plate. Everybody's been talking how things should be flat and tight, and that is also true when you're making a round plate. It's very easy to get the measurements wrong and have the thing cup up or down and pucker. They make usually 3 classic templates. There's a 30-degree template that makes a 12-segment plate, 45 degrees makes 8-segment, and 360 divided by 60 is 6 segments. You can see how that works. Each of these templates should have a 1/4-inch seam allowance all the way around, including at the bottom. I also have a template for 45 degrees, and you'll see how that works in a minute. But 30, 45, and 60 are the usual templates with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Now you can buy them. These are the ones I bought. I think they cost me $4 or $5 a piece on Amazon. I think one of them I found at an estate sale. You can see that it's got a 1/4-inch seam allowance, and it's very important to have the seam allowance at the tip because when you tuck these things in or sew them on, you want this to come to a point and not to come to a point back here. You follow what I'm saying? And I like these see-through ones. It's important to have these horizontal lines on them because when you line it up to cut them, you don't want a skewed triangle. You want a perfectly symmetrical triangle. So you can buy them, and they're pretty cheap, and they're light. And these plastic ones work good with a rotary knife. Or you can make them. I made this one out of bookboard. Does everybody know what bookboard is? Bookboard is a kind of highly compressed cardboard, thick cardboard. If you get a hardcover book, what's underneath the fabric of a hardcover book is this stuff. And it withstands heat if you're hot cutting, and they last a long time. And you notice that I've got a vertical line so that I can make sure that my horizontal lines are perpendicular. If you want a hot cut, and I'm not sure why you would hot cut because all of these are seamed, but you can make metal ones. I tried hot cutting a few. I wasn't, I think it's a lot more trouble than it's worth. But once again, you have to mark your horizontal lines. So you can make them or you can buy them. If you're going to be hot cutting them, you'll need, a glass plate, and you'll need metal templates. You can cut them with a blade, and if you have a blade, you have to have some kind of a cutting mat. I personally like rotary cutters. They're fast, and they work really well with these plastic templates. Some people moan about using rotary cutters, and I'm going to give you a few tricks about how to use them to make them easier and faster to use and to keep them from skating across your fabric. But that's the way I do it, and you could do it any old way. You could use a scissors for that matter. You can, in fact, we had a little thread on the internet the other day about how if you make a nice mark along the side of these templates, you can just cut it with the scissors. So you've got a template, and you've got a way to cut templates. And so now you have to cut your sections. All these angles are reciprocal. So in order to save fabric, you can cut the first triangle this direction and cut the next triangle upside down. If you're going to do that on a piece of solid fabric, off of a roll of fabric, I have to remind you to leave this little section. You see how I've marked this little section? This is this, right? Because otherwise, if you try to cut this upside down right to this corner, you've lost your 1/4-inch seam allowance. That's clear enough, right? So if you're going to cut them off of a solid roll of fabric, this is the way you would do it. But that's not my favorite way to do it. What I prefer to do is I cut a strip of fabric the size of triangle that I want. And I do that. There's 100 ways to cut fabric. I've got these great little plastic quilting rulers that show me exactly where my lines are, and they cut easily. Let me show you the video of this. Let's see if it'll let me show it. I'm not sure why it's giving me a hard time.
So we've already talked about cutting triangles.
Can you hear the sound?
A large sheet of native
Yes.
fabric, but that's not my favorite way to do it. This is my favorite way to do it because it's so fast and it doesn't lead to any waste, and it's very convenient. And what I've done in this case is I'm making a 6-inch wide ring, and so I need 3-inch deep pieces, and I'll be cutting them with a 45-degree template. So I've cut just used a rotary cutter to cut the 3-inch piece. And then all I have to do, this is 3 inches. You see the 3-inch mark, but I've cut it at 3 inches, and so it's going to naturally match. I don't have to worry too much about lining it up. And I cut it off. Then I flip it upside down, and I cut it off. You notice I've got one hand on the cutting surface and one hand on the template. I'm cutting straight down.
You should jam one finger from the corner of the template
And
onto
then I turn it upside
the
down.
cutting surface so that it doesn't slide.
And you can see how fast and easy this is. Now, because I'm sort of working over a camera, I'm not putting as much pressure down as I might, and you might see a little bit of motion of the fabric. But in the course of this last 30 seconds, this is going to be an 8-section circle. And I want 4 blacks, and voila. In about 30 seconds, I've got 4 sections, and I know that they are exactly 3 inches.
Any questions so far?
No, but my comment is I just put it in my laser.
But Great idea. I would do it. That
Yeah.
If I had a $10,000 laser cutter, I would do it just like that.
No, I'm just hassling you.
I can volunteer to go in and mute him.
What kind of laser cutter?
I have a 80 watt, it's 24 by 36 inch bed on it. And then I've got a 4x8 CNC router that I'm going to put a laser head on, a diode laser for cutting fabric.
Lindsay,
I'll be right over.
I'll shut up now.
Lindsay, let me finish my presentation. Okay, so look, now you've got these triangles. You've got all these triangles, and now you have to join them together into a plate.
Mitch, if I could just, you asked about a question.
Yep.
Is there any, do you have any issues with flipping the fabric back and forth with a difference in coloration or texture? Or would you recommend marking front side or wrong side with some sort of mark, so as you're flipping them back and forth, if you run into an issue, you can quickly identify which is the upside of your fabric? Just a
What
question.
I do when I have, I have some fabric that is one-sided. I've got some of that printed fabric that Premier used to put out, and sometimes there's a shiny side and a not so shiny side on the fabric. And when that's the case, rather than flipping it front side and back side, I flip it 180 degrees with the right side up. You follow what I'm saying?
Perfect.
So rather than flipping it back and front, what I do is I flip it side to side so that I can just keep cutting, and I'm always right on my mark. It's just that the template will be upside down sometimes and right side up sometimes. So now you've got to attach this. Did that answer your question, Rhonda?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. So now you've got to attach them together. And there's two ways that you can do it. You can either flat seam them, that is to say, lay them one on top of another and just use a zigzag stitch across the flat tops. Or you can use a French feld seam, where you put good faces together and sew down a line. So it's important that you keep this a strict quarter inch seam allowance so that it doesn't cup. And so the one way to do it is to mark it. So this is me marking it with one of those convenient quilting rulers. But also you can spend about $1, and this is a 1/4 inch seam marker. It's just a little plastic rod, which is a square and 1/4 inch on each side. And you can see that I've just used a fabric pencil and marked my 1/4 inch seam allowance. The challenge is to keep the dip flat. So you can mark it or light table it, and there's all kinds of ways to attach it. Once it's marked, you can put double-sided tape on. This is a 1/4 inch, and this is an 1/8 inch double-sided tape. Or you could use that horrible blue tape, or you can use HT2 to little HT2 glue along the side so as to stick them together. But that's not my favorite way to do it. I have a light table, and I like hot tacking things like this. I don't hot tack everything. Let's see if I can't play. This cannot play media. Let's give me permission to play this.
This is by far my favorite way to piece together Dresden
You guys can hear
Plate.
that?
And frankly, lots of other applications.
Yes, we can hear it.
I can do it almost by feel. I can tell whether or not the underlying fabric is even with the tape on my light board. I weight that in place. And then once I place the darker fabric on top, I always place the darker fabric on top to make it easier to color match the threads. If I
Please
decide
note
to
that
hide
this
the
is
seam.
about even up here.
And then I just take my soldering iron and dot it into place, hot tack it into place. I got this method from Linda Sanders. Thank you very much. Now, some people don't like the fact that these little holes, but my experience is that when I use a zigzag stitch, it covers those holes over, and the needle makes its own holes. And I haven't noticed anything in the sky to discourage me from using this technique. And I think you can see that it holds it together certainly firmly enough to put it on the sewing machine.
Okay. So here's the next trick. Any questions about that so far? One thing that I wanted to say, yesterday or the day before, there was a chat online about people, how their hot tacks don't stay. And if you notice, I dot the hot tack and I put my finger directly on it in order to sort of crush the melted layers together. They do make hot tackers with little springs attached to them. I've never had one, but I find that hot tacking works fine if you just press down on the melted pieces. It never has burned my fingers yet. So,
Barb Meyer had her hand raised. Barb, did you have a question?
Well, really, I have more of a comment. I'm going to go back to cutting out.
okay.
I use a lot of triangles as design elements. And when you're cutting out, I mean, you can layer up your strips. Don't move your strip. Turn your triangle upside down. And then you can just nest them one after another. It's much faster when you've got your strip all lined up. And that way, if you've got to do 2 layers, you can get it all fixed and put in there.
I agree with that. And we're going to see very shortly an example of that very thing. In that case, I had a small strip and it was easy enough just to flip the strip. But it is sometimes better to tape the fabric down or weight it down and then flip the template rather than flipping the strip. And certainly if it's a one-sided, if it's one-sided fabric, that's exactly what I do, is I flip the template end over end and not the strip. So I agree with you. So here's another trick about keeping this disc flat. Small variations, even if you're very careful, are going to cup the disc. What I do I didn't invent this idea, is I make the disc in 2 halves. After I finish a half, I lay a straight edge right across these 2. And if this is a little high, or this is a little high, or this is a little high, I cut it dead flat. So I know that I've got this flat and I know I've got that flat. And when I piece these together, if I'm flat seaming them together, I do both of these at the same time. I'll put tape or glue or hot tack or whatever I'm doing. I put it on both of these at the same time so I know that it's laying flat on the table. If you are, and here's another example of that. In this case, I didn't want a button in between, and so I cut the triangles to a point at the very bottom, and I used the straight edge to cut this, and I'm going to join them right along the entire edge to make sure it stays flat. And here it is, all glued and sewn together, flat as a pancake. Now, if you are going to French seam them, if you're going to flat fell seam them so that they're good face to good face, even if you're very careful with it, you're going to have to sew 1 seam at a time, and it allows for a certain amount of variation. So if you're going to do a flat felled seam, as I have here, you can see the bottom piece of this seam. What you want to do is lay it flat and make a mark where these 2 cross. You see the mark that I've made? Now, ultimately, I'm going to use this ruler and draw a little line across here, and I'm going to make a little tick mark on the other side of this, so that when you lay them good side to good side, you'll be sewing right down that line and guaranteed that the plate will be flat. Any questions about that? I know I've tried to make it graphically clear. Everybody got that part? Okay. So, a true Dresden plate has a central button. And you don't have to have a central button. If you would rather just have a hole, you can hot cut a nice, perfectly round hole, or any number of ways of cutting a nice, even hole in the middle of it to let the background fabric shine through, or to make a hole in the middle of the kite if that's your pleasure. this is an example of me just sewing the central button down. Interesting, we were talking about how I like to use this is a two-step zigzag that I like to leave about an 1/8 or 16 inch from the side. In this case, I'm actually pegging down the edges of it. But you don't have to have one. You can have the points meet if that's your pleasure. The other thing that I want to say is this picture is staged. If you were really going to use, hopefully, and I'm not bragging about my sewing skills, there isn't a person on this call that doesn't have better sewing skills. But I've tried to make all these points face the center of the circle. So you see how this line lines up with the needle. So while I was actually sewing this line would be pointed toward the center of the circle, and I sew 1 or 2, and then I lift the foot and rotate my fabric, and sew 1 or 2 and lift my foot and rotate the fabric, but always so this line is pointing toward the center. So the first one that I showed you, I didn't sew a button onto it. I split this plate, and the button is actually this other Dresden plate. So as you look at this, it's perfectly clear how I made it, right? I mean, I just lined these up, back cut, sewed this in with a zigzag, back cut along the back. I color matched each of these, which is a bit of fancy baloney that probably won't make a difference at 100 feet. Any question about how to make this kind? Let's step it up a bit. How about this one? It doesn't exactly look like a plate, but I think you'll see very shortly that everything about this is a Dresden plate. We'll start with regular, just by cutting our standard sections. And then I used a 45-degree template to cut points onto the outer parts of these sections. Now, what I've done here, and I didn't do this for your sake so much as my own, is I put a piece of tape along here because I want the edge of this fabric to meet here. Not out here at the seam allowance, but here. Do you follow that? Because I'm not going to seam allowance this. This is going to be cut away. So it ends right there. So I cut these so here it is, cut 90-degree angles on the sections. And then I pieced it together as usual. And when I'm doing contrasting colors like I always put the dark one on top and the light one on bottom. Now and I color match the threads above and below. This is pink thread on pink or orange on orange, purple on purple. This gives you some choices. It's actually sort of a different look to have the dark showing through rather than having the dark covering. But in this case, what I do, and you can see how I've hot tacked this and I'm about to sew it, I put the dark on top and the light behind. And this looks like just your standard Dresden plate with a pointy edge, right? No surprise. Then you have to make another template. This is a piece of heavy-duty poster board. And you have to make a template to match this angle. Now, these are 90-degree angles, but this is not a 90-degree angle because these sections radiate from the center. So this is going to be more, back up. This is going to be more than 90 degrees. And in fact, the longer these are, the wider this gets. And so you actually have to make a template just for this angle. There must be some geometric way to do it, but I just make a template. Then you take the 2 pieces of fabric that you want and French fell seam them together. They're just straight pieces of fabric. and you cut sections. Now, this is a regular, this started out as a standard section. You see how, everybody see how that would have been out from there. And this was cut with that little poster board template that I used. Now, here's a trick, and that is I put the poster board on the fabric, and I put a plastic template over the top of that, because the first kite or two that I made, I found that I kept cutting the poster board with the rotary cutter, and the angles got wider and wider. So in any event, so this is, everybody see how easy and straightforward this piece is. And I turn them upside down and explode them outward, and this is the way they would fit, right? This is the angle that I cut the template with, and this is just two pieces that were sewn together and cut as sections. And so the star, this is the star all sewn together. So it looks like a star, but in fact it's just a Dresden plate in the center, and a Dresden plate exploded to the outside.
Hey, Mitch,
Yeah.
you have a question from Jason in the chat. Any reason you didn't piece triangles out of multiple colors and then piece those together?
You could, oh, I see. Let me back up. If you're talking about this, you're talking about this? Jason, you there?
I can't see your pointer, but the end pieces that you cut out with the kite shaped pieces you cut out with the poster board.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you didn't just continue. I guess you'd have a seam that you didn't want. Maybe that's why. But you could piece triangles and then piece those together.
You can. You know, one of the reasons that I designed this the way I did is for pedagogical reasons, you know, because I thought it'd be easier to demonstrate. But you're absolutely correct that these outer pieces, you can't see my arrow? These outer pieces could, let me see if I can do this. An arrow. Can you see my arrow now? No. These outer pieces could be one part, they can be split, they can be 3 or 4 different kinds of fabric. Each of these could be multiple pieces of fabric. You know, I wanted to keep it sort of simple so you could see the process, but in fact, these could be split, or these could have green ends and match that green end. You know, I mean, it's a very flexible technique. But you're right, I could have made, I mean, it could be done in a number of ways. And one of the ways I thought about doing it is making the central plate be floral. If you're doing this in back cutting, you don't have to actually cut the outsides because you'll be back cutting them. But in this case, just as an experiment, I made a little round template and I cut a floral outside to the central Dresden plate. And I made a little, you know, cutting template for that. It was the same as the angled one, except that it was curved. And it would have been just as easy to make a star using the floral center. I didn't really like the way it looked, and so I didn't pursue it. But I think you can see the flexibility of the technique. So I just wanted to point out that if you wanted to make a flower and you put this behind a darker fabric, you wouldn't have cut these. You would mark them and sew them and back cut them. But that's something you all already do. So here's how that one looks with the sun behind it. This is the way my hand looks with the sun behind it. And this is just a Dresden plate with exploded points on it. And these are sections from a different Dresden plate using the same technique with orange and purple. So even though the whole thing doesn't look very much like the Dresden plate that you would see on a quilt, it's all just parts and pieces of the same technique. Any questions so far? If not, let's step it up a notch. I wanted to make a mariner's compass. And while it's, I think at this point you can already see, if you squint your eyes, that this is just versions of Dresden plates. The thing I want to point out before I get off of this picture is how this edge matches this edge. This edge, these two edges, the edge of the black on the interior plate matches the pointy black on the outside. Can you see my arrow? Can you guys see my arrow? Somebody tell me if they know.
No, we
No, but
can't.
How
But I'm guessing you might be able to click and drag after you choose that pencil icon, and maybe you can draw or something to highlight things.
Okay, let's see. It doesn't seem to be working for me. Anyway, there's a seam between the outer black point and the inner black point, and that matches. And I think you'll get my point in a minute. So even though it doesn't look like a Dresden plate in the end, the central portion is just a black and white Dresden plate. Everybody knows how to make one of these, right? This is an 8-blade plate, 45 degrees. And then, after I made this 8-blade plate, I made 8 30-degree sections. These are 45-degree sections. And I made 8 30-degree sections. Now, why would I make 30-degree sections rather than making more 45-degree sections? Well, if I wanted the outer pieces to be longer than this, I'd have to use a narrower angle so that by the time the black pieces were the same size across the top, they'd be longer. You follow what I'm saying about that? So let me see if I can. The laser pointer? Can you see the laser pointer? You guys?
Yes,
Okay.
that looks good.
Okay. So in order for the point of the compass to have a base which is this long, if it was a 45-degree cut, the length would only be this long. It would be exactly the same as this triangle. So if I wanted the point to be longer, it had to be narrower. So I just cut a bigger one so it would match. So this is a mock-up just to prove that this was the original Dresden plate, to make it clearer. I've actually sewn and back cut these to make it more clear. This is a much larger 30-degree triangle, and this would have extended out to about here. They almost touched, and I back cut them to make it clear, but these would have come out here, and they're just regular old Dresden plate triangles, cut narrower, but cut much longer so the base would be wider. So this one is already sewn and back cut. And that's the way the mariner's compass looks. Now it hasn't been sewn onto that color, but there it is laid out. Any questions so far about that? So that's the Dresden, and this is the edge that I really wanted to match. This is part of the original plate, and this is the edge that I needed to match with this. So next I wanted to make a circle, right? Because it's a mariner's compass and it should be set in a circle. Everybody recognizes this, right? This is a 12 or 30-degree section mariner Dresden plate. This is a 1 foot long ruler, so this is maybe 15, 18 inches. I don't remember how big this is, but you see it's big. You can make these big. You can make them big enough to cover the moon if you had the right sewing machine. So I just sewed that together the same way as you would. It takes about, once you got all set up, it probably took me 30 minutes to put together this whole thing. I have a bunch of wooden embroidery hoops and of various sizes that I've collected in all kinds of places, St. Vincent de Paul and all kinds of places. And I was able to put together enough of them to hot cut these into more or less even circles. So basically, this is this, just cut into concentric circles. Now, I have to say, I really love circles because these rings, I love rings because this is on a piece of Tyvek Rokaku just to see how I wanted to lay things out. Because you can use them as decoration, or you can use them to focus things. You can put fans or pointers on them. You can make them into eyeballs. Why is this not going down? You can just rotate them. You know, you can make them all and just rotate them so you get this step off sort of red effect. You know, you can make them asymmetrical. I saw a wonderful one where this was over here. This ring was sort of over here. This one was over here, and it had a very dynamic sort of motion. So rings are very, very useful for me. I just love them as decorative elements. So in this case, what I did is I sewed the ring on first. I sewed the Mariner's Star on second. The reason I sewed it on second is so there would be a space between the Mariner's Star and the ring, so I could get a scissors under the star and easily cut away the ring. And I sewed it into I think that's a 42-inch Rokaku. So you wouldn't guess that this is a Dresden plate, but it's the same technique. Any questions about this? And that's the way it looks in the sky. And I tend to be very much of a chicken. Oh, I hope you noticed that what I did is I tucked the black. I had this on the outside, and I tucked the black underneath the ring. I'm trying to give it this sense of dimensionality. Probably not so obvious, but it just gives you an idea of how flexible it can be. So I think you can see the possibilities. You can use them as fans, or you can use them as compasses. You don't see the white here so well, but you can use the fans as corners, or you can explode them out. I love these little gears, these little sort of clockwork gears. I had intended to actually make a clockwork kite. I just ended up putting them in fighter kites. Because I thought they looked threatening, and my flying is so terrible that I had to put something scary on the kite. Can everybody see how this was made, though? Can you now perfectly easily see how this was made? This used to be a triangle. This used to be like a standard Dresden plate section with a triangle that went from here across to here. It was just a purple sewn onto an orange, right? It would have come out like that. And I just cut this off at an angle. You can cut them as points and circles or angles or asymmetrically. You put holes in them. And this is my most recent Delaporta. It's when you break these up, they're called fans in quilting speak. And so I don't know if there's quilters out there, but you can make these into fans. Each of them has their own separate little pseudo button. And these are rings with a relief set in the ring so that you can see the background fabric.
Hey, Mitch, Lindsay's raised his hand.
Yes, sir.
Mitch, I just want to reinforce your use of Tyvek. Thank you very much. No, anyway, but no, the Tyvek Rokaku or any shape, prototyping with inexpensive fabric, be it Tyvek or get yourself a few yards of 1.5 ounces white, or something that's not expensive. 1.5 ounces is like half the price of 3/4 ounce, and it's stiffer. You can easily handle it, and then you can cut the shape of your kite out. I mean, this is Scott Hampton's technique. He prototypes every kite that he makes, unless it's a duplicate. He prototypes it. He goes out and flies it, changes the bridles, gets it all right, so it flies before he even makes the final kite. And then he uses the prototypes, and he'll take the parts off of it, the pockets, and reuse them. And so I like how you're using the the white fabric so that you can lay your pattern out before you sew the kite. And I think that's great.
I just want to disagree with you in one way, Lindsay, and that
Okay,
is,
fine.
and that is, I don't just use Tyvek to prototype. Tyvek holds stitches great. It holds glue great. It looks good. It flies good. And I have kites that are just Tyvek, that are not prototypes, that I've really put time and energy into making nice. And so not only do I think it makes a great, I mean, I agree with you that it makes a great prototype, but in fact, Tyvek makes a good kite. I've had.
Well, I don't know why it would. I mean, I'm just being facetious because.
Lindsay, stop talking.
Yeah. Anyway, no. And I wasn't saying don't use Tyvek, of course, for for kites. I'm just saying that if you don't have Tyvek, because or if you find some just ugly purple fabric, that's what Scott Hampton, he hates purple, and so he uses purple and green fabric, and he scrounges and buys it, and then that's what he makes his prototypes out of. Just to get the shape and make sure that it all flies. But what you're doing is laying out your design on a white surface, and the Tyvek is a perfect medium for that. Plus, it's great for kites. So I'll leave you to it.
Well, thank you. Anyway, so this is the most recent example, just as another example of the sort of the power of the technique. And the reason that I put this up here is because you don't have to be, the kites that I was making, the early kites that I was making were all very formal and symmetrical, and I tried to make them more serious, but you don't have to. You can, in this case, you can just make a silly face with what's left over from your Tyvek kite, from your Dresden plates. Eyeballs and noses and grins, and if I thought about making 2 arches of black and white sections and offsetting them like teeth with gaps in them, so that I could make a pirate kite. I haven't gotten to that yet. Anyway, are there any other questions about this? I guess I haven't run my full hour, but I'm eager to chat with people about tips and tools if you have any questions about that. All right. So it looks like
I've got another example of what you can do. I've got a quilt here, a family quilt, just as another way to put these together and arrange them as fans for a neat effect here. Thanks for the presentation. Yeah, this is how these can go together kind of on a 90-degree and pattern like that. I think it's the same. It's just 90 degrees of a Dresden plate. Yeah.
Not only can you break them into fans, and I see that there's a question about the bent tip on my hot tacker, but I promise to get to that. But not only can you make them into fans, but there's a way to attach the fans so that they bend in one direction and the next direction and the other direction. And I think that's called, they make one called the Drunkard's Path, and they make one called Grandma's Garden. So if you're online and you're looking at quilting sites, is a great way to find the variations on the Dresden plate. And just as you showed those fans, if you hook the fans together so they're going in opposite directions, you can make something called a Grandma's Garden. So yeah, thank you so much for showing that. The quilting sites are a great way to find that stuff. Now, as to my hot tacker, somebody noticed that the hot tacker that I had a bent tip on it. I think that the first bent tip one I got was from Dan Kurahashi, but since then I just go to Micro Center, where I buy the 60-watt tip, and I put it in a vise, and I put a MAP gas torch on it, and I take a hammer and I just bend it over. So it's just a regular old 60-watt soldering iron tip that I heated and bent in with a hammer. but that's the way I do that, and I cut that way too. And so, what I find oddly enough is that I can tack with my right hand because my agile hand is my left hand. I can't hold things together as well with my right hand, but I can tack okay with that side. So it's actually quite, it's easy and fast. And people badmouth hot tacking, but I use it frequently. And I want to recommend people using their light table. I know a lot of guys who have hot light tables and they don't use them, but you can, lay out parallel lines on the light table, and they're very, very useful that way for marking up your stuff. Any other questions?
When Dorothy and I took Linda Saunders' banner class, when we were doing a lot of hot tacking, and we found that a lot of our hot tacks were failing. And Dorothy came up with this great idea of, rather than using our fingers and burning the hell out of it because we were doing so many, we ended up using just a glue stick as a surrogate finger, and you got a good tack every time. If you like, I do electronics for a living, and there's nothing particularly great about the soldering pencils that we're using for this. The spring is fine, but just making the bond and then hitting it with a like a Yoo-hoo stick or something like that worked so much better, and we just stopped having failed tacks.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you so much. I actually will try that.
You can also get little silicone fingertips that you could, if your skin's really sensitive, you can put a little silicone fingertip over your tap down finger, and that, also addresses the same issue.
And I wonder if this is the softness and pliability of the Yoo-hoo stick. So anything that might be mushy, like one of those silicone fingertips or something soft like that, wouldn't also give you good coverage.
We were using the
on my finger.
We didn't have a silicone.
Yeah, we were using a capped stick just as something to a surrogate finger.
Oh, I see.
Like a dowel.
And you were just using the plastic cap.
Yeah.
Oh, good on you.
Except it had a handle on it, of course.
Yeah. It's just to make it easier to hold.
And we had it in our kit.
Yeah, the kit that's best is the one you have with you. Any other questions about Dresden Plate or how to use this technique?
Mitch, do you ever, if you make your template out of your book board, have you ever used either the aluminum duct tape to reinforce the edge, or the copper tape that pressure sensitive tape that you use in stained glass? That's a technique a lot of people use, and then you can hot cut against it and you're not burning the board. The other method that John Freeman used on those templates was just using CA glue, super glue, and paint the edge 2 or 3 times, and that hardens it up, the cardboard, to where you can cut repeatedly and not damage the edge of the board as quickly.
Yeah, let me first of all, I completely agree with that. In fact, if you guys look in Fortuna Found, I don't know if they went and put this as a YouTube. I think she may have mounted this as a YouTube, but I posted a whole PowerPoint. Oh no, I think it was a video on how to line your cardboard templates with that copper tape, so that you can use it as a hot cut template. So I have a whole video, and I think, are you still with us, Nick?
Yes, I am. I think it's on there. I'm looking for the link right now.
Yeah, I did a whole video on how to line your bookboard or cardboard templates with this with the same copper tape they use for stained glass, and it does make a great hot cut, and it's cheap and fast and much easier than cutting metal. And that does work good. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say as a physician is I really don't know whether you want to be hot cutting next to cyanoacrylic glue, because cyanoacrylic glue gives off actual cyanide.
Thank you, Mitch.
So it's bad enough that we're hot cutting nylon, which also gives off cyanide in enclosed spaces. But cyanoacrylic glue, I just worries. I can't tell you definitively if the science is there, but I don't know if I would want to breathe that. In fact, if you stick your nose too close to an open bottle of it, you can tell how irritating. So anyway, enough said. Any other questions?
Mitch, don't they use that for stitches sometimes?
The cyanoacrylic glue that we use for wound care is a quite different formulation that does not give off cyanide. If you use cyanoacrylic glue to close your cuts, it will injure the cells and prolong healing. So don't use regular cyanoacrylic glue for wound care. The stuff we use for Dermabond, which is the brand name for the tissue adhesive, is a quite different formulation that binds the cyanide. It forms butyl cyanide, which doesn't release. So, but that's a good question. Don't do it. In fact, when I was in college, during the hippie days, there was a girl who thought it would be cute to put a little diamond on a little sort of glass jewel on her cheek, and she used super glue. And it took about 3 weeks for that ulcer to heal. So don't do it.
So Mitch, in regards to nylon and CA glued edges, I think that you're gonna release far more on the edge. You know, you're hot cutting nylon, which is releasing cyanide, and there's far more material being burned away than the edge of the template that has CA glue on it. So people have been hot cutting nylon all these years and not knowing that they're inhaling cyanide. So it should be ventilated anyway, a light, fan in your area, not a big breeze box, but just a small fan just to evacuate the smoke, hang it over and exhaust up, let it dissipate out. But, the concerns are there. I understand.
I don't mean to overstate the case. I don't mean to be alarmist about the case.
But also besides that copper tape, you can just go to Home Depot and buy yourself a roll of aluminum duct tape, and it's really inexpensive. You get miles of it, and it's great to have around the house anyway.
But aluminum will give you cancer in California.
Yeah, so.
California. Yeah, I have to say that metallic aluminum probably won't. You're not going to heat that long enough to really give yourself much trouble heating aluminum. But yeah, that's right. That's another cheap way to do it. The copper tape is actually a bit expensive. Copper tape is a bit expensive, but you can get this aluminum duct tape. You have to sort of cut a strip because it comes in 3-inch wide strips. It's made to seal your, dryer ducts. But it is metallic aluminum. It works good.
Not really. As soon as aluminum is exposed to oxygen, it oxidizes, and you basically got a sapphire coating on the aluminum. That's definitely not something to worry about.
Yeah, that's what I think. I don't think that aluminum.
Yeah, but I've used the aluminum duct tape for years, and it doesn't oxidize.
It already is oxidized.
Oh well, no.
Raw aluminum oxidizes almost immediately.
Yeah, but it's shiny, so it's not oxidized.
Yes. No, it's oxidized. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason that it doesn't rust is because almost instantly it forms an oxidized coat that seals it from oxygen. You know, it forms this interlocking oxidized coating, which is molecularly thin, but it blocks out oxygen from getting to the rest of the aluminum, and that's why aluminum doesn't rust. It's sort of interesting. Do I have that straight, you science guys?
Yep, you got it.
We have Ron Lindner has raised his hand.
No, I think we've gone off subject, except we were talking about templates. We started with templates and we've gone off subject. You're right. And hi, Ron. I haven't seen you in a dog's age. Ron Lindner, I have to say, is one of the guys that got me into kiting, and he lives maybe 30 minutes from my house. So I'm hoping they'll absorb some of his wisdom by osmosis. Any other questions about the Dresden plate or about this, about the process or design process of using Dresden plate? Well, without further ado, I guess I'll let you guys have I cut it? Was this too short a talk, Nick? Maybe you can let these guys.
Well, the next session doesn't start till 3, and that is happy hour. So if you guys want to take a break and go prepare some snacks and, you know, get your favorite drink, in half an hour, we're going to kick off just kind of a session where we talk about all of the awesome Kite Maker conferences and stuff like that. Otherwise, this session can remain open until you guys are done, until the last person leaves.
I ought to say that you know, there are some of the people on this from Germany, even Scotland, and Holland, and I had a chat with some of these folks on a Zoom call recently. Tomorrow I'm doing a forum on tools and tidbits and cool stuff that you can use to design or make kites. You know, cool tools or inventions or ways that we've changed around the tools that we own. And just in about 5 minutes, the probably half a dozen guys that I see on this chat gave me a list that is 2 pages long. And so I encourage you to show up to tomorrow's section on tools and tidbits and pick up some of their wisdom on all the cool little inventions and stuff that they have and have done. And I'm embarrassed to say that I own, after a couple decades of making kites, I own most of the crap that they've made, and I don't use it.
Some of us are only here for the tools.
Hobby, you know, I sometimes make kites, and sometimes I'm a collector of fine kite making tools.
Thank you very much, Mitch.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Mitch.
I'm going to sign out. Thank you for coming.
Bye-bye.
Amen.
Hey, Lindsay, are you still here?
I am. I just unmuted myself. I was doing some coloring, and anyway, so I looked up. And people are still here.
Yeah, this is Steve Anderson. You have the laser cutter, right?
I do.
Just for grins?
Yes.
Okay.
How much?
No, I wasn't asking how much.
Oh, okay.
Well,
yeah, you said so. You have an 80-watt CO2 one.
Yes.
And then you said you were going to put a diode on your 4x8 CNC machine.
Right. Yeah. That's the goal.
How
think
strong a diode are you going to do?
I think they're around, 10 to 30. It depends on who you buy it from. If you buy direct from China, the 30s are about 10. The company that I'm looking at has actually started selling modules. They're here in the States, so they buy their diode lasers and then they do a package for you, and then you can use different post processors with it. And I have a ShopBot laser, and so they've worked with ShopBot on this diode laser, and it's about, I don't know, $700-800, something like that. But it will, cut maybe 3mm plywood, but it will cut fabric easily and engrave, and that's what I'm looking at, because I was just going to do a spring-loaded hot knife originally on my router.
I thought about that. I have a cheap Chinese laser cutter that I've just started.
You got a K5 or a K40 or whatever it is?
No, it's just an open, aluminum extrusion. No.
Oh, so you do have a diode laser on that?
I have a diode laser on it. I'm not sure how strong it is. I don't recall because I bought it used.
Well, because it should have how many?
It's 3 or 5 watt, I think. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
I guess I could open it up and look, couldn't I?
It should be marked just on the side. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing about it, 3 watts. So the problem is it actually works great for cutting details. But it's slow, right? Especially on white. It's slow.
Yeah, white. Yeah, white, because it's, I think, because of the wavelength. Of,
yeah. So black, pretty good. White, slow. So I've been contemplating, and I got this to try it out. I'm currently, as I'm sitting here on virtual UMake, I'm actually I'm sewing. I've got 2 sales that I'm in process on, and it worked great for the detailed cutting that I wanted to do. It's just very slow. So that's why I'm curious about your experience with this, with your 80-watt laser. Are you using the 80-watt laser on fabric?
Yes. Yeah, and I dial it down. I mean, I go
5%, right? Yeah.
Well, no, I can only go 10%.
Okay,
or 12%.
But it's super fast then, right? That I gotta imagine.
Because I can also cut at 400 millimeters a second. So
a second.
Yeah.
A second.
Right.
Sorry, I'm like 400 millimeters a minute.
No, I totally get it. Yeah, but we paid $8,000 for this thing too. So there's a big difference.
I mean, how do you keep the fabric from lifting up with the exhaust system on a laser like that?
Well, I can pull the exhaust from the bottom.
So you have a vacuum table set up?
No, it's just the exhaust system. I can vent it either to the back or down.
Okay, because I tried using, there was a maker space near me, and I tried using they had a Epilogue with a decent sized bed. And the problem with it was that the fan, either the exhaust or the
air assist was the thing that
the air assist was
right.
It was blowing the fabric up, right? I couldn't, and so it would cut it incorrectly.
Yes.
And so I've been sort of struggling with. I've got this. I really like the laser cutter because I can set up a pattern and cut it multiple times.
Right.
But it's slow. So I guess what you're saying is
here's what you can do. And this is how I cut fabric and other stuff, is that you can get a sheet of 20 thousandths aluminum. What it is that it was trophy plate material, and I dust it and I dust it. It's from Trophy Plates. It's a 12 by 24 sheet of aluminum, and it's anodized on one side. And so you can, remove the anodizing with the laser and engrave. So I figured, well, hell, that means that I can, lay something on top of it and cut. And that's what I did. And I use a t-shirt platen, or for screen printing, the spray adhesive, because it doesn't transfer onto the fabric. and it's tacky enough. And I just lightly spray the board, let it really dry, and then tack the fabric down, sit it in the laser cut, and then peel it off. The other thing that I do too is if I've got a bunch of stuff that I'm going to repeat, I'll take like 1/8 inch MDF and
cut a pattern, cut a template.
Do an offset pattern so that the fabric is sitting on top, but the kerf is, it's wider underneath, so you're not burning and charring the back of the fabric. And
that was the other thing, right? Yeah, if you had like plywood underneath it or paper or something, you would get this.
Well, yeah, and you could use a cardstock. That would be just as easy for you to use because it's gonna cut faster. I'm trying. God, I thought I had a photo album with the Fortuna that we did that you make last year. Damn it. Let me see if it's in here. Maybe not. Anyway, so I've got this technique where on the fabric, your pattern, well, I've got it here in front of me. So I don't know, let me.
Yeah, I can see your camera. You're on. I'm not.
Okay, I'm unpinning.
Oh, and it's still recording.
Yeah.
So
well, anyway, okay. So this is a piece of white here,
right.
and you can see there's a cut, but there's a tab. So there's a little,
leaving the tabs, right?
Little tab. Okay, so there's the shape, and it's shaped like a wing. Nick and I designed up this yard art called Fortuna. And so it has these wings. Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay. Then we have this is
that's
the black applique over it. So can you see the?
Yes. So you've cut that. You've left all the tabs on there.
Right. So once you remove, you tack these together with a little bit of spray adhesive. You cut the frame off. You sew around, and then all you have to do is snip the tabs on your applique, and you're done.
Right.
But then the backside you have to back cut.
And we did the white so you could use the Design Master
paint on the white, so you could paint it. Yeah. So anyway, it's a neat technique, and you should be able to easily do that on your little 3-watt laser. And you could probably. I'm thinking you might be able to, if the power supply is enough, you might be able to, eventually, buy another module for that.
Well, I've got,
like a 10-watt or something.
Right. I've got plenty of ideas, right?
Yeah.
But the ideas, they include getting on McMaster-Carr and buying more aluminum extrusion to make the bed
Don't
bigger.
go to McMaster-Carr. They're too expensive. Go to 80/20.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
80/20. Okay, so 80. Yeah, I just go to 80/20.
And where are you located?
Illinois.
Okay, well, 80/20 is back there, I believe, and they'll have a distributor, and that's what I buy 80/20, and you can get it. It's a lot less money, and you may be able to drive and get 8-foot lengths of the stuff and all the connectors from the distributor.
Yeah, that'd probably be a good option. I mean, like on eBay or Amazon, it's pretty crazy, outrageous. And then I looked at McMaster-Carr, and it wasn't as expensive as Amazon, but I was thinking I could get it off of, if I can get longer extrusions, right, then I can increase my bed size. And then I was thinking about doing kind of a vacuum. I hear what you're saying about just spraying the tack on there.
Well, I'm going to do a vacuum, but I'm going to use an aluminum plate probably.
Well, that's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
I actually got a galvanized plate that you would use for a ductwork. I got a big one, like a box of 2 of them for like, I don't know, $12 or something. 15
you could try that. You could try that because.
Oh yeah, I'm using that right now.
Yeah, to cut on.
Yeah,
and you're cutting against. Yeah, right. So yeah, just try and tack your fabric down with a little spray adhesive, and you'll be good. You should be.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
far, I'm using a lot of magnets.
Oh, they work too. They work
Yeah.
perfectly. Yeah, just keep them out of the way of the laser. You're fine.
Yeah, they.
See, I use the laser because I've got a honeycomb bit, that's underneath, and
Right. So you're cutting. You're
I'll
cutting
hold
wood
stuff.
and stuff. Yeah.
Well, that too, but I mean, I can do quickly do the fabric, and it's the holes in the honeycomb are only maybe a 1/4 inch or something like that, for vector cutting. But yeah, it magnets stick to it really well and hold it down. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. So I'll carry on. I'll go check out 80/20 to get maybe some.
Yeah, because you can buy directly from them, and then they also have. I'm on their website now, and they've got tutorials, all sorts of stuff. So, yeah,
It's a good place to go, is what you.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've used their stuff.
And maybe at some point I'll ask about what kind of additional kinds of lasers to get.
So are you 3D printing at all?
No, I am not, but some of my friends are.
Okay, well, 8:30 in the morning is my 3D printing thing.
Fittings? Maybe I'll probably
not just fittings, but jigs and fixtures and all sorts of stuff. So because if you're going to be fabricating some new stuff, you could be 3D printing some of the linear motion parts too, and not have. Because what I did is that on the 80/20, I was going to buy one of their linear motion slides on for the extrusion, and I just went and downloaded. They give you all the files, and so I just downloaded it and 3D printed it, and it works perfect for my application.
Okay.
And it wasn't $80 for the bearing.
Right. That's the that's the other thing. Right. Yeah.
Right.
So I do not have 3D printers, but some friends of mine do, and my niece does. So I could probably have one of them do it for me if it comes to that.
We have 6. I don't want to say anything.
Yeah. So just print up lots. So all right.
Okay. Hey, nice talking to you, Steve. Have we ever met?
Yeah, likewise. If you've been to UMake, probably, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, we were there last year. Were you there last year?
Yes, I was.
Oh,
but
okay,
I was in the Hashi class, and what other class did I take last year? Quadrex, I know.
Yeah, we were downstairs below the dining hall.
What class was that?
It was the Felina and the Tomitomo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't in either one of those.
Yeah.
But
cool.
Next year.
Yes. All right.
Next year. All right. Well, thank you very much for spending some time talking to me
no worries.
about that.
It's fun.
And that's right. It's so take care.
Okay.
See you in the next one. Well, maybe not the next one, but tomorrow.
Yes. All right.
Okay. Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye.
Hey, Lindsay, if you've got a good used laser bud in
what was that? I missed that first comment about the.
If you've got a good used laser, Bud Taylor could be interested.
Oh, he wants to buy a laser?
Yeah, he needs all the information to actually make a decision. So I'm thinking, hey.
Well, yeah, I mean, it all depends. Yeah, I can get a hold of him. Yeah, because the pricing's all over the world.
Exactly.
But because
and he doesn't know what he needs and all that kind of
shit. Well, I mean, if he's looking at getting something, large to cut, fabric or whatever, it's, we're talking pretty big money.
Are you going to be including some of that information maybe tomorrow in your talk?
I think I will. Yeah, because it's all ties together,
Yeah.
So if Bud is around and wants to jump in on that, then he might get some additional information that he wasn't really looking for. But it's like even today, little tidbits of various people's experiences has even with all the years of me building kites, I learned a thing or two today. So this is why I come to these things or try to jump on. So
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I'm just here to hear Lindsay say that he's got lasers.
don't encourage him.
It's we have lasers.
He'll say that anytime. You don't need to be here for that.
The company has lasers.
Oh,
There is a reason I have my camera off. Okay, all the faces I'm making, you guys don't want to see.
Dorothy says hi, Rhonda.
Hi, Dorothy.
How you doing?
I'm ready to do other things besides what I'm having to do right now. So that's why today is a nice break.
Yeah.
You guys doing okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all good here. We're all healthy.
Good. That's the goal. Everybody stay healthy.
Yeah, I've retired.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
It's not bad. It's one long weekend though.
I'm missing my drive to come down and play with you guys.
Mm.
I've got lots of podcasts that I need to listen to, and that was usually my way of getting rid of them.
Well, they're guessing that next year it'll be in person at Fort Worden. So
I think it will. I'm very hopeful.
all right. So Spence, I must apologize. I did put I wrote a comment. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. So could you explain what happy hour is about? Because I really missed the definition of that.
I'm assuming it's very similar to 7 Minutes in Heaven, but maybe more time and less intimate is my guess. I don't know. I don't really know anything about it.
Spence,
It's more of this with alcohol.
Yeah, that's my guess.
Mitch, you need to turn up your volume.
Rhonda?
Yeah.
Spence,
Would that be one more session for Gary Engfold to get thrown out of?
Yeah. I'll sign up for that.
I usually try to wait till 6 o'clock, but you know, hey, what the heck? I'm not going anywhere.
Hey, it's 6 o'clock here.
6 o'clock.
So I figured it's 6 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah.
Did Spence, did Nick ever find the link to the video about putting copper on the edge of templates?
I have no idea.
She was going to post it, and I don't see it here in the chat. So maybe
I didn't see anything. But I don't know, maybe she'll add it to the resources after the fact when the video gets uploaded, that sort of thing.
I was just thinking that the Dresden Plate would be a fun in-person class too. You know, you can give people a couple of Dresden plates and a basic kite form and let them just break it up and do what they want with it. You know, to have them start with a basic Dresden plate and then have them make 10 different things.
That kite that Deb Lenson won quite a few awards for was similar, was it not, Mitch?
Yeah.
Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, that was a magic window kite, and that was done in a slightly different way. That was folded triangles stitched together. Now that was an amazing piece of work, but it's a different technique. It looked the same, but it was a different technique. You could make one like that using the Dresden Plate technique, but the thing about that magic star, it's called the magic star. The thing about the magic star technique is that because you're folding it, you have some areas of 1, some areas of 2, some areas of 3 layers of fabric. So you get all these gradations of color. It's really quite amazing what you did. I think I actually have a magic star kite picture that I could post. And so I ran a little short. I feel sort of bad about that. I tried so hard not to run over, and then I just overdid it. Well, I guess.
Hey, who cares?
No worries on that end. Yeah.
It's quality, not quantity.
I kind of miss seeing your resistor or the insulator weights on the table.
Oh, yes.
We use them quite a bit.
I've been using them a lot. Yeah.
Even though they're mine. So maybe you could explain to people what we're talking about, and then it's almost time to get to the next one. But I just thought it was ingenious.
Rhonda, how much extra baggage fees did you pay coming back from UMake last year?
I don't know.
What'd you have, 40 pounds of things that you didn't take out there with you?
Well, actually, I had a lot of fun giving things away to people.
Okay.
And it was really delightful to chat with people that were like, oh, wow, I really wanted to win that. Really? What does it mean to you? And then if they gave me a good enough story, they got it. And that's how we raised our son. If he really, really wanted something, he had to come up with a good storyline, and didn't always get what he wanted, but he at least learned to negotiate. And
So there's your.
Oh, there he is. Lindsay's showing you. You can pin him. If you hover over his picture, you can hit the pin button, and that'll bring him to the front of the screen so you can see it better.
Yeah, people collect these. These are
Yeah, they're pretty green. I like them.
Ancient green insulators for high.
I can't hear anybody. I guess I put my earbuds in.
Those are insulators for high tension wires. And for a while, it was quite a vogue for people to collect them. And when that vogue started to fade, suddenly, every time I went to an estate sale, I could find these great old insulators.
Yeah,
so
no, they're great.
I filled them with something, and I put a leather pad on the bottom of them. I think I filled them with lead shot, sealed it with epoxy, and then I put
and the cork
on the bottom of them. So then they've got a nice little handle to the top of them, so they're easy to use for.
The other thing that I use on my straight edges that I haven't sold in a long time, but is rubberized cork, and you can get that from a gasket supply, the company that makes gaskets. And boy, that stuff is amazing. Just that little bit of neoprene rubber with the cork, it really grips.
Yeah, I have a sort of an obsession with weights. And so sometimes I cut up old mouse pads. Nobody's using mouse pads so much anymore. But I cut up mouse pads, and the bottom of the thinner mouse pads has this really nice grippy kind of rubber.
Yep.
I use that. I use leather sometimes. It's fun. But those glass weights are really fun to use, and they're a good weight too. I have a. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. I have a picture of that magic star kite, but I'm not sure how to present it without. I'm going to give this a try.
Well, just click on present now and then share the window.
Present now. So you think it's a window that I'm sharing? Yes, it is.
Yeah, a window or a tab, or.
So that's the thing. Now hers, many. I did mine sort of in this cross shape. She had about 3 times as many folded triangles. But you can see there's dark and light, and there's all these different layers, levels of fabric. That's a wonderful start technique. Anyway, so it looks somewhat like a Dresden plate, but it's a different one. Well, look, anyway, it's getting close. I'm going to sign off. Thank you all so much for attending.
So what are we on to, happy hour?
So what, Lindsay, I especially encourage you, and Craig as well, because you guys have got so many really cool tools and tricks to come to tools and tidbits forum, so you can share some of those outstanding inventions you guys make.
Oh, I plan on it because the last thing I got at UMake was that bundle of surgical tools from you.
Oh, yeah. Put those on the list.
Yeah. Oh, when you're talking about applique scissors, it's like, no, there's a better set of scissors in my kit for that getting in there.
Okay, well, I'll see you guys at the next one.
All righty.
All right.